30 children, most dirty, some bloody, all frightened, were hunkered down beneath the thatch of a collapsed hut. And when Barry passed by, a young girl struck him on the leg to get his attention. When he saw her, and after screaming in her face, she led him and Tommy to her friends. Mitchum ordered a perimeter to be made around the children. Myers and Tiger went to the girl and began asking her questions about what happened to the others in the village. She spoke calmly, which gave Barry the heebie-jeebies. "What did she say?" asked Lieutenant Myers. Tiger took a moment before answering. "They came to kill." In VA, Myers surmised, likely more for the platoon than himself. "Why did they attack?" The girl replied. "To punish," explained Tiger. "Because they thought they helped you."
"She's lucky to be alive," Mitchum noted. "Tell her I said good job. For knowing to get those kids out the way, I mean."
And to that, the girl responded as if she understood exactly what he meant. "She said," Tiger began, all of his tiger-killing power no longer apparent. "She didn't do that." "Who did?" Tiger replied without any hesitation. "The angels." And then the girl spoke, so clearly, so perfectly in American English that it sent Mitchum backpedaling behind Barry. "They spoke, and I helped. That's all."
"We have officially entered the fucking Twilight Zone,"
Tommy grunted as he stood, his gun ready for action. It was ready, he explained, in case that little girl decided to whip out some more Far Eastern voodoo on the platoon. Barry was inclined to agree. However, he had been saddled with the job of taking care of the girl and her friends, along with Dabrowski and Tommy. Barry named the girl Mary, figuring the last time something as freaky as that happened, an entire religion was born. "So, you speak English?" he asked her, and she stared right at him curiously, but offered no hint that she actually did or did not speak any English. "Yeah, right." 10 minutes passed, with Barry staring at Mary and Mary staring at Barry. Occasionally she copied his moves. When he leaned, she leaned. When he hoisted his gun, she hoisted her stick. When he muttered, "God damn it," she garbled out noises that sounded vaguely the same. Strange, Barry thought. She doesn't seem at all upset that her whole village was blown to shit. 5 minutes after that, Lieutenant Myers returned with Sergeant Mitchum. Mitchum stayed far behind and didn't look at Mary. "Right," Myers said. "We can't leave them here, and we can't take them to the next village. Wilkins, Tompkins, Dabrowski, you three are going to remain in charge of the children. We're taking them back to the outpost." Dabrowski, who never caused much trouble at all, raised his hand and asked, "Sir, are you saying we're taking 30 kids across the entire valley on foot? Because I can't imagine all of us fitting in the Hueys." "We'll have air cover as we go," Myers explained. "But we will be on foot until we reach a more secure location. Can I say that's a really dumb idea?"
"Only if you want me to shove my foot up your ass,"
boomed Mitchum, and that ended his protests. 3 miles, Myers explained. "We're taking them 3 miles to evac." The journey back to the valley, to that secure evacuation zone, would take the rest of the day. 3 miles might as well have been 10. And Barry stared at the remains of the war-torn village. The enemy was nearby, and they were now on babysitting duty. As much as he worried for himself and his friends, he realized that he was more worried for Mary and hers. The 3 babysitters spoke quickly, determined that Barry should be the one to lead the kids. Dabrowski liked the idea and volunteered to stay out of the way. Myers took to the front of a newly formed column, a head and a tail with a group of children in the center, flanked on their right by Barry, Tommy, and Dabrowski somewhere in the back. And Mary stayed close to Barry as they started their journey. Barry felt at home on the dirt road back to the outpost. It reminded him a bit of Mississippi. It was hot, but not quite Vietnam hot back then. It was green enough. He imagined his last summer in Mississippi, with the radios playing the ball game while Grandma served up sweet tea. Mary stayed close to him, occasionally taking him by his rolled-up sleeve. She kept her eyes down, though, which made Barry think she was tired of the whole ordeal. Most of the kids were looking up to the trees, scared of who was waiting in the dark. Most of the platoon was the same way. They looked all around, making sure no one was watching or waiting to get the drop on them. Helicopters thumped overhead as they took turns making long circles over the area. The first 2 hours were easy. The kids listened to whatever Tiger told them to do. Often, they were quicker when it was Mary who was giving the orders. Barry was glad that nothing was happening. He even took a chance to nudge Mary, thinking that she might need a little support after all. Mary nudged him right back as if to say, "I'm all right." And Barry gave her a look which meant, "You sure? You don't look it." In reply, Mary simply lowered her eyes, which Barry took to mean, "I'd rather not talk about it." He gave another nudge against her shoulder, which meant, "Hang in there." And she smiled at him, thankful. But then that smile disappeared. A look of terror came over her. She gripped Barry by his arms and tugged at him. He didn't understand what she wanted to say, and then she screamed at the children, waving her arms towards the side of the dirt road. All the kids scattered and slid down the berm. It was then that Myers shouted, "Contact right!" and the ambush began. The first shot struck Dabrowski square in the throat. A fountain of blood and meat showered Tommy and Barry as Dabrowski fell, clutching his neck. Before Barry could move to get him, all hell opened up. Those familiar cracks and snaps of Kalashnikov fire sent him down the side of the berm alongside the children. 2 more men in the platoon were hit and fell where they stood. The berm was short, only giving 3 feet of protection. "Open fire!" someone shouted. "Where's the fucking chopper?" screamed another. It didn't matter. Even over the roar of the gunfire, over the snapping cracks of the bullets overhead, Barry heard the children screaming and crying. He saw them hug each other, panicking. Except Mary, who watched the action as if planning her next move. Tommy raised his weapon, unleashing a torrent of bullets into the trees. More soldiers fought back. Barry did so too, firing 5 rounds in quick succession to the dark of the tree line. One gunner next to him was hit in the hand, another was hit in the arm. And Barry and Tommy did not let up, picking out those telltale puff and flashes in the shade, fighting back. And it was then that Mary screamed. 2 boys dashed away from the berm. Mary cried out for them desperately, and Barry joined her. He fell back, taking cover, begging those boys to come back, but they did not listen. One of the gunners, a big, thick man bearing a belt-fed machine gun, noticed the boys and unloaded everything he had into the trees to give them covering fire. And then Tommy noticed the boys, and he gave chase. Barry raged at him, demanding that he come back. "Tommy, get your stupid ass back here!" But Tommy did not come back. He left his gun behind and sprinted after the boys. He sprinted into the field. And it happened as if fate decided that they should go down together. The instant Tommy had the boys in his arms, the ground opened beneath his feet. All 3 went in without any sound. No scream, no cry for help, nothing. Mary plunged her face into Barry's side, crying, and he cried for those boys and for Tommy. And even as he cried, the bullets tore through the sky and space overhead. He couldn't help but feel sorry that Tommy wouldn't get to hold Susie ever again. He'd never have his home again, never have his farm again. "I've had enough of this shit." Barry spun around, standing straight up, rifle levied at the trees. He squeezed the trigger. Bang, bang, bang. A flash in the dark stopped flashing. Bang, bang, bang. A shade and shape jerked and fell back. Barry didn't care if they shot him. He dared them to shoot him. Go ahead, he thought. Kill me if you can. He replaced his magazine and then let loose with another bang, bang, bang. As quickly as the ambush began, it ended. Barry returned to the berm, fell down and cried for his lost friend, Tommy Tompkins. Mary hugged him close, speaking words that Barry did not understand. Yet she comforted him. Myers gave orders after the Huey returned to its patrol. The gunship raked the trees with machine gun fire for good measure, and just to let them know that they weren't gone, the NVA returned fire from somewhere in the distance. Barry wandered out to where he saw the ground swallow the 3 of them up. He was careful where he stepped. He didn't want to fall in like Tommy had. He noticed a large patch of earth without any grass not far away. He figured that is where Tommy had fallen. He didn't know what to expect. Would he see Tommy there, in the ground, bamboo skewering him? Were those boys there too? Would they be like him? Barry dropped his gun as he walked. He called out, "Tommy," as he crept forward. Tommy didn't say anything back. As he was about to reach the clearing, Mary jumped in front of him. She pushed against him, saying something in her local gibberish that didn't mean a damn thing to him. He tried to push her aside. Mary jumped right back in front of him. "Get out of my way," Barry demanded. She held up her hand, still speaking. "I said move, goddammit." "No," Mary shouted in English. "It's devils." What did that mean? It's devils. Hearing her speak English didn't feel real. It felt all wrong, as if she spoke in someone else's voice. Barry knew that he ought to obey, however, and so he did. He returned to the dirt road with Mary at his side. Myers was busy with Mitchum as they called in the Hueys. It was decided that the last mile was 1 mile too far. The pickups would happen right there in 20 minutes. The wounded were treated. The dead, except for Tommy and the 2 boys, were collected and prepared for transport. The children cried for their 2 friends. Mary comforted them as best she could. Barry stayed close by. Clouds gathered and rains fell for only a few minutes before the sun returned. The whole road felt hot like Barry imagined a sauna might feel. Thundering engines spurred the platoon to action. Tiger ordered the children to break into 4 groups of 7. Mary instructed her group to stay near Barry. They were the final group. The first 3 entered the helicopters without trouble. The gunners and riflemen sat along the edges to keep the children safe inside. "All right," Barry called to Mary and her 6. "Get on in." But Mary did not get on in. She stood still, eyes locked to the field where Tommy and the 2 boys fell. At first Barry thought she might be feeling bad that her friends had died, but when he looked to that field, he saw something strange. A man stood there, right in the center of the patch of ground where Barry thought at the pit took Tommy. He was a tall man that didn't seem like he belonged in Vietnam. As much as he squinted to get a better look, Barry couldn't make out the man's face. It was only when he turned to announce contact that he noticed, out of the corner of his eye, that the mystery guest looked like he was ready for murder. Barry didn't make the call. He felt cold and afraid in the same way he felt as a boy when he ran to the man in the white hood. And when he was a boy, it was prey meeting predator. That man in the field, the man who could only be seen from the corner of his eyes, was every bit the predator as the white-hooded man had been all those years ago. Except this time, Barry knew he was in much worse danger. "Devil," said Mary. And that was when hell opened up again. Screaming shells and bursting bombs rocked the road, not at all far from where the Huey had hovered. A burst struck the tail, breaking off the rotor and sending the whole thing down into a death spin into the field. Barry grabbed Mary and ushered the children to the opposite side of the berm, and as he did, he noticed the devil man taking long strides his way. "You stay down," he ordered Mary. He then raced to the down Huey in order to get the pilots out. However, when he arrived, they were nowhere to be found. Only helmets and their belts were left. Incoming fire sent him back to the berm before he could check to see if they'd been thrown from the cockpit. And from the corner of his eye, Barry noticed that the devil man was halfway to the road. "Run!" Mary cried, just when he fell against the berm. And Barry listened. Under that nightmare hell of enemy gunfire, under the hellish gaze of the devil man, he gathered the children together and pointed down the road. Mary explained it to them. But she took off in a dead sprint in the opposite direction, towards the tree line where the first ambush had taken place. The children went after her. Barry, confused and pissed off that he was not consulted on this plan, took off after them. Dirt and grass burst all around them, but he was sure to step where Mary had stepped, and wherever she stepped the bullets did not hit. He prayed so the ground would not take him. He prayed so that the enemy would not kill him. He prayed that the children could make it to the cover of the trees. He looked behind him only one time, and the devil man was atop the road, his wicked eyes trained right on Barry.